Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Waste World Podcast, the podcast where we explore innovations, disruptors, and big ideas shaping the future of the waste and recycling industry. My name is Gage Edwards. I'm your host, again, back from my trip to Archon, but I'm recording this before my trip to Archon, so I don't know how the week went. Hopefully, I'm not stranded in Columbus while you're seeing a digital me back in my office. Hopefully, everything goes well. Hopefully, nothing happened that week that is bombastic news that I'm going to be late on because I had to record this early because of travel. Hopefully it's a normal week for everybody. Thank you for being here today. Thank you to my guest for being here today, which I'll introduce her in a second. Every episode of the Waste World Podcast, we dive into systems behind the stuff we throw away and the people working to change what happens next, including my guest today, Lexy Silverstein. Today's conversation centers around the fastest growing waste stream in the world, or one of, that is textiles. That is between fast fashion, impulse shopping, and seasonal clothing that only gets worn once. Millions of garments end up in landfills or incinerators every single day. The environmental cost is enormous, yet the solution isn't just about recycling. It's about rethinking how we value clothing in the first place. Lexy Silverstein is doing that with some programs she's working on both coasts, in Maryland and in California. We also, on this episode, talk about the combating social trends and ultra fast fashion when it comes to places like Shein or Temu or TikTok Shop. All of those things, and especially we focus in on Halloween, where people are spending way too much on a Halloween costume that they're wearing one time and then throwing away. That is building up the textile waste stream unbelievably quickly, and it is ending up in landfills, and it is a not good thing that's happening. So we need to rethink that. So enjoy our conversation. Enjoy what Lexy is bringing to the table in the world of fashion sustainability, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Lexy Silverstein is a sustainable fashion advocate, creator, and circularity strategist. She has developed clothing and costume reuse programs in Los Angeles and Maryland that keep textiles in rotation while reducing the volume that ends up in the waste stream. Her projects focus on education, community engagement, and creating easy pathways for reuse through donation drives, swaps, or collaborative recycling programs. Lexy uses her platform to spotlight the true impact of fast fashion and to also show that sustainable choices can be affordable, fun, and accessible. She's working directly with organizations and local partners to build scalable models that other communities can replicate. And Lexy is proving that textile waste isn't just a fashion issue, it's a waste and infrastructure issue as well. Lexy, thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for being here to talk a little fast fashion with me. How are you?
I am so good. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about fast fashion and hopefully also about sustainable fashion.
Let's hope so. I know there's so many, I spend all day going, all right, there's a problem. How do we fix it? And now I just have professionals come on here like, all right, these are the problems and here's how we fix it. Let's just kind of get that ball rolling. Let's
Yeah.
snowball effect it into something here. So with saying that, let me allow you to introduce yourself to our listeners who may not know who you are, maybe a little about you and the programs you're running.
Yeah, well, I'm Lexy Silverstein. I'm a sustainable fashion advocate, and I guess my journey into sustainable fashion was I was always a fan of just the fashion industry in general. There's always stories of when I was like a kid and I would lay out my outfits the day before school in like the order that I was gonna wear it. So like my bracelets would be where I imagined my wrists would be, and like my socks would be where I imagined my feet would be, and like it was like as if I had laid on the carpet and then just like removed my body and that's where the clothes were. And then there were stories like I would, when I could crawl, I would like make my way into my mom's closet and I would play with her jewelry and her hats and just always a lover of fashion. So when I was 13 years old, I started a fashion blog called Elexify, and it's the same blog that I have nowadays, but back then it was all about like where to get denim for cheap and use my code Lexi at this, not so great brand and who wore what to what event and not really realizing that I was being a part of the problem. And so it wasn't until I toured my now alma mater the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in downtown Los Angeles, or FIDM, that I learned really what sustainable fashion was. Because I walked into one of the rooms that they have there, and it's like all of these sustainable fabrics, like 3D printed and cork and pineapple leather and apple leather and just so on and so forth. And I was like, what the heck is this? Like, I had no idea that that was the thing. And so it sent me down quite the rabbit hole of researching and learning about the fashion industry and what sustainable fashion was. And I just really couldn't believe what I was reading because this industry that I had loved so much, that so many of us love, and even if we don't necessarily care about it, we all are a part of it because all of us are wearing clothes. Um, it was just really shocking to hear how harmful it is to the people who are wearing the clothes, us, the people who are making the clothes, our garment workers, animals, and then our planet. And so I immediately switched everything I was doing. And instead of like use my code, it was like, don't use my code ever again. All those places I initially listed for those cheap denim to get, don't shop at any of them, and here's why. Here's more sustainable ways to source denim. And instead of like who wore what where, it was like, here's sustainable outfits that were featured on the red carpet. And so really switched everything I was doing. I started my own podcast that is now called The Lexy Show. Um, and I get to speak to amazing, guests who are also part of just sustainability in general. But obviously for me, it's a little bit more of a focus on fashion. Um, and yeah, and then I started doing some, more advocacy work. So actually, while I was at FITM and completing my 4 years of college, that last year, the school ended up partnering with Shein. And they did a partnership where a bunch of students had the opportunity to design a 10-piece collection for Shein X, which is their like designer in incubator program,
Okay.
as well as get a scholarship, which is such an amazing opportunity, especially for a young designer. My only issue with it was, why did we have to do that with Shein?
Right. I mean,
Like
it seems like the counterproductive, program.
literally, can we choose any other company? Especially because Shein has been sued for stealing small designers' designs, especially because they're super unsustainable. They're an ultra fast fashion brand. They're a huge part of our problem in the fashion industry. So I started a petition that got over 4,000 signatures in the span of a few weeks.
Huh.
And I was speaking with my school about figuring out ways that we could, figure this out and dissolve this partnership or at least work on something in the future that so that there's no partnerships like this again. Unfortunately, the school has since been dissolved and bought by Arizona State University.
Okay.
So while it was a super successful because it brought up, a lot of this great conversation about Shein, um, I guess great conversation about Shein, also really bad conversation about Shein. But it brought this up. There was not in the end much that we could do because the school stopped kind of existing.
Mhm.
Um, but it was that was like my first, I feel like, real act into advocacy work, and since have hosted protests and clothing drives and clothing swaps and um, so much more and hopefully more to come. So that's my story into sustainable fashion. Kind of
Well, good,
long.
good on you to like take your blog when you're 13 and kind of make it for good. If I had my blog from when I was 13, I don't know if anyone would want to talk to me. I'm sure that was a nightmare
No.
to read through. I'm not interested in seeing what I wrote down. Glad I can't remember it. It's just gone from the psyche here. Well, cool. So building programs on both coasts. We're talking, California and Maryland, which is close to me. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about that. But what have you learned from running these projects that you didn't expect going in?
So for Halloween in the month of October, and currently it's going until November 7th, I hosted a clothing drive or a costume drive.
Hmm.
I think so many of us, which is amazing, we're talking a lot more about how, this fast fashion industry and just clothes in general are really impacting our planet. But we're not necessarily talking about those kind of like individual days throughout the year that in themselves create so much waste.
Yeah.
And so this was something that I was super passionate about because I love Halloween. I love Halloween. I've always loved Halloween. Um, and I last year I did a series where it was 13 days of Halloween costumes sourced from my closet. And this year I did 31 days of sustainable Halloween costumes. I was really struggling to stay creative during the end there.
Sure.
Um, but I think that Halloween in itself, I mean, we 35 million Halloween costumes in America are thrown out each year.
Mhm.
And that amounts to 83 million plastic water bottles, just to give a reference of like how much waste that really is. And again, that's just like one day out of the year that's creating that much waste. So super scary for our environment. And on top of that, Halloween costumes are at a record high in terms of how much they cost. So Americans spend anywhere over like $100 per year on Halloween costumes. So not only is it really unsustainable, but it's also getting more and more inaccessible. So my goal with this drive was to kind of combat both of those two issues, is to make it accessible to families, make it free, and also keep those Halloween costumes out of the landfills. And so we teamed up with Heal the Bay here in Los Angeles, which is a great organization that works on. I'm so sorry, my dog is barking. Give me one
I
second.
can't hear it, but yeah,
Okay,
you can go check it out if you want.
I'm just gonna yell at her real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, she's been yelled at. Um, okay, cool. So yeah, here in Los Angeles, we teamed up with Heal the Bay, which is an amazing organization that they just had their 40-year anniversary, and they work on really cleaning and restoring our oceans here in Los Angeles. They did a lot of really great work at the beginning of the year when the fires happened, and they were one of the first resources out there to tell you like what beaches you can and can't go to.
Hmm.
But on top of that, we've worked with different clinical associates locations, which is there's a primary and specialty care medical group in Maryland. And so we kind of had this bi-coastal initiative where people could drop off their locations and pick them up throughout the month of October. And now that October is over, we're also encouraging people for the next week, if you're not going to use your Halloween costume again, which unfortunately tends to be a common occurrence when it comes to Halloween. You know, we do that one costume and then we're over it. But if you're not going to use it again next year or you have no use for it, drop off your locations until November 7th. And I will take them and I will find ways of really making sure that they're being recycled. So we're getting the costumes that were dropped off in Maryland sent to me in Los Angeles. And then there's a few organizations, but there's one local to Los Angeles called Homeboy Threads, where they are great. I've been to their, not like factory, but like, I don't know, their building, whatever, in
Warehouse. Yeah.
can't think of the word, in Los Angeles. And they are so cool. Like they get so many donations, and you can literally go and see just how many clothes that they get. And they will either resell it if it's possible to be resold, if it's like good enough quality. Or they have people that go through all of these like huge bundles of clothing and find ways of recycling them. And so I think that it's really cool because like these things that we don't know what to do with anymore, they can literally be used as like stuffing in our couch.
Mhm.
And so that's like a common thing that they'll do is like finding ways of like really making sure that these pieces are being recycled. As well as Trashy is an organization that I they have these like take back bags where you can get them in your house. I have them all year round. I always have a Trashy subscription. I really just love it. And I think like their goal is kind of for people to use them as like oh, I'm getting rid of clothes. Let me give them to Trashy. Rather than I think a lot of our like go-to mindset with that is like, let me give it to a Goodwill near me or a thrift store near me. And while I totally always encourage that over just throwing your clothes out. Please, if if you take anything away from today's podcast, do not throw your clothes out. But while I definitely suggest that over just throwing them out, um, our thrift stores do get such a insane amount of clothes per year,
Mhm.
especially around this time of year. I can't remember the exact statistic, and I definitely need to figure this out because I have just been saying the statistic as a reference for
Okay.
weeks. And I'm like, this is not accurate. But it's something along the lines of like a Goodwill, like they will get in a day what they usually get in a week
around this
by
time.
like holiday season. Honestly, it could be more, it could be possibly less than that. I don't think it is. I definitely think it might be more or that statistic. Um, but me, I'm a storyteller. I focus
Yeah.
I focus less
Right.
on those stats sometimes.
Well,
But
we know it's tons and tons and tons of
tons and
clothes. Like,
tons
and
and
it's
tons of
it's
waste.
always it's always more and more. And then we have Halloween, and then I'm doing a story now where Thanksgiving is like, well, everyone's just overbuying food. So we have now this problem, but
Yes,
instead of textiles, it's food. And it is the
exactly.
holiday season is a just a fast, waste stream all around. And so the work you're doing at least gets us through Halloween. Now I'm working on, Thanksgiving, and then we're getting to
Mhm.
Christmas with the abundance of buying to show your love to somebody. It's like, oh, we can do this in other ways. It doesn't need to be just through buying things to throw away.
Oh my God, exactly. My family does thrift miss, so
There you
we
go. It's a
we
good
will
idea.
thrift each other everything. So
So for you, what does success look like in these programs maybe over the next year? Like, are you coming out of this and you sit through November 7th? Like, what does that look like going into maybe 26th Halloween, or just maybe doing this for a full 12 months?
yeah, this is just the pilot program. This is the first time that I had done a costume drive,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it in my eyes it was super successful. I'm really happy with the results. I mean, just in Maryland, we collected 70 costumes, and
How many of those were recycled Orioles jerseys because people are disgruntled with them? Because I know I am, but I'm not getting rid of any of my Orioles jerseys. But if anyone else out there
uh,
is, I will take them from them.
see, and you're a true fan. That's how I feel about the Ravens right now because we're so bad. We're so
You can't see it. I mean, my Orioles stuff is there. My Ravens shrine is here, and I'm just like,
it's
what's
a
going on?
hard year for us.
Hey, or it's time for a winning streak. It's
I
it's
know.
Lamar is back. It's time.
I know. My dog's name is Raven, and I'm like really counting on her to bring us that luck. Like, Raven,
Please,
what are we
please,
doing?
Raven.
Yeah, I will keep you posted on how many of those are Orioles jerseys. Hopefully people are good enough fans that they're sticking around. I will say I have, since moving to Los Angeles, become a bit of a bandwagon because I feared the Los Angeles Dodgers. You know,
Part of the problem. Part of the problem, Lexi. Part of the problem.
I know. I'm sorry. But like we're good, so ooh. Yeah, well, and then we're still waiting to collect the amount that we have gotten in Los Angeles because people are still dropping them off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, in that in itself, those numbers in itself feel like such a success to me. And I think just even seeing pictures of people coming in and like getting those free costumes, like even if one family or one person got a free costume, like in my eyes, I'm
Pretty good.
so happy. I'm so happy because that's really, that other driving force of this drive is to make sure that this is becoming a more accessible thing. Um, but next year into 2026, I definitely hope to, keep going bigger and better. Obviously, this is bi-coastal for now, but I would love it to be nationwide, and seeing what other like locations we can get around the states as drop-off locations.
Mm.
And I think as well, not only keeping it necessarily towards costume drives, something that I've been looking into is definitely the holiday season, but also just like again, these days that we don't necessarily think about or these events or like these things that were pushed at us. So I really think back to school is such an interesting concept to me because I always remember like growing up and it was like get your back to school clothes and get your back to school pencils and like it was like, well, I have pencils, like, and I have
Yeah.
clothes.
I
Like,
didn't use all my notebooks last year.
yeah, like, I'm really confused why we're being pushed constantly that we need new stuff. And obviously, like, as kids are growing, and like, that makes sense. You need maybe new clothes if you've grown out of your old ones.
So, speaking to that point, who do you feel like is harder to influence, brands or consumers?
Oh, gosh.
Because it almost feels like a vicious cycle here, right? Especially with this, like, oh, we got to rebuy for next year. We got to keep doing this. You always
Yeah.
need new stuff. Like, where do we start?
I think I think that we as consumers have faced a lot of pressure. It's been on us consumers a lot to
Hmm.
see what our impact is. And I think that's really interesting because on my podcast, I was actually talking to an organization called Make Polluters Pay. And they're really amazing. They're doing great work, but they focus on big oil. And they were talking about how the whole um, what's your carbon footprint or like test your carbon footprint and see what your carbon footprint is was literally created by big oil industries to make it feel like it's the consumer's responsibility. So
Gotcha.
while I think that there are things that we can do and every little thing you do is so important to do, um, I think that it has been pushed on us as consumers so much so that these brands can get away with it and, even legislation and then huge, huge companies and just markets that we don't even think about necessarily blaming. Um, and so I think that, yes, while I so always encourage the everyday consumer to think about your habits and change your mindset and do some research, I do think it's not just on us as consumers. Because when you think about it, if like every single brand, if we had legislation out there that made it so every single brand out there was legally required to make sure their garment workers were paid correctly, or their garment workers were, I don't know, working in safe conditions,
Sure.
or their garment workers were of a legal age to work, or these pieces are, let's look at their end of life, let's look at how long they're going to live, are they made well, what fabrics are they made out of, if I wash them once, are they going to like literally deteriorate and then send out a million microplastics into our oceans, like thinking about all these things. So if there was legislation out there that covered these topics, then brands would have no choice but to, follow those and
Hmm.
be more sustainable. And then consumers would have no choice but to shop the companies that are out there, thus only sustainable and ethical ones. Um,
Right.
and so I think it's a little bit of everybody's problem,
It's
but I think
everybody.
it's
Yeah.
become way too much on the consumer side of things. And while I never want to discourage people because I do think that being in this space sometimes can be very daunting. And you're like, well, what am I even doing? If like how much is really this like, one t-shirt gonna affect the planet? But
Hmm.
I think it's like when you look at it, like I always was shown that sketch cartoon thing in like school where it was like if there's one voter and they're like, well, I'm not going to vote because what does my one vote do? But then it like switches over and it's like 8 million people saying that.
Hmm.
That's how I think that we should think about it when it comes to like these less sustainable options and where it's like, well, what's my one purchase going to do? Where it's like, no, well, if you actually did make that one purchase a little bit more sustainable, it could, you know, it could just last longer in your closet, which in itself is more sustainable. So of course, always encouraging consumers to see what they can do and shifting their mindset, but also definitely like as consumers, let's also push for legislation to change. Let's speak out about these brands. Let's really use our buying power and support brands that we align with. Because we have seen it happen. We have seen, brands get called out for being unsustainable or unethical and like genuinely doing research about switching back or switching. I don't know. One of the examples that I feel like I always think about is there's this shoe company called Allbirds, and they're like great. They focus on making more sustainable shoes, um, and like sneakers. And they got called out by this organization called Remake, which I'm actually an ambassador of. I love Remake. And they're a great organization.
Small plug.
Yeah, stop like they're a great organization that really also works in that like legislative change. Um, but they're also about like community and all this stuff. And they got caught out, Allbirds got caught out by Remake, and everyone was like shocked. Everyone in the sustainable community, maybe. I'm like everybody, but I'm like already in this field, so I'm like it seems
Right.
like everybody to me.
A big deal.
Yeah. And everyone was shocked because they were like, what? Allbirds, like they're sustainable. And Allbirds like genuinely was very concerned and confused, and they worked with Remake and like worked on getting back to their like original sustainable goals. And I was like, see, like like this is the what our impact is. Like
Hmm.
you can really make a difference. So
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of answers the question I had about being motivated and like this daunting task of being an advocate for sustainability because there is like I'm only a small piece of this. Yeah, but like well, that kind of adds up to a big piece. And I guess thinking on that as being somebody who is an influencer or in this fashion field, like what trends or behaviors are contributing most to the problem right now? And I know we talked about Shein and I know Temu is a big deal out there too because people are like, oh, I got a $4 shirt, and like, okay, well, you have no problem throwing that away, which becomes an issue.
yeah.
So somebody who might have a chance to influence people, like what behaviors are you thinking? Like, we gotta get over that. We gotta combat that somehow.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think just in general, fast fashion is like a huge, huge, huge problem. They're my number one enemy, specifically Shein. I hate Shein.
This
I
is
like
not a
I said on
Shein Pro podcast, so you're safe space.
Good. No. Yeah, it's just there's like fast fashion and then there's like ultra fast fashion and
Hmm.
that's like the Sheins and the Temus. And it's really just inexpensive clothing that's been produced rapidly by like mass market retailers. And so and they're in response of these like micro trends. And so I think it's like a little bit of not a little bit. I think it's a bit of social media. Because when we had, the COVID shutdown, all of us were on our phones. All of us were consuming social media to a rate that personally I had never consumed social media quite
Sure.
as much as I did during those years. And so, and I think that that was a lot of our experiences. And so we were constantly being pushed these new trends. Like, I feel like we didn't really like know necessarily what people were wearing because obviously like we couldn't see and go outside and like whatever. And for the most part, I was wearing sweats the whole time. So um, like I think like we were just getting constantly pushed these things on social media, these things that are cool. And not even just in the fashion industry. I mean, trends are everywhere. And I'm not here to be like trends are horrible. Trends are awesome. I think it's how we implement trends. Trends are around in every single industry, not just the fashion industry. And, it is how we keep, you know, like these new things in style and these fashion shows and these whatever. Um, but I think it's like so much of what these fast fashion brands push. So essentially, they'll see this micro trend. I feel like the biggest one that I really remember was like bows. For bows were on everything. Like
Hmm.
it was frickin' bow city. Like you could not go outside and not see a bow. And don't get me wrong, I love a bow.
Sure.
But it was like bows were being pushed, 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 and then we were producing in order to keep up with these fast, trends. They have to produce the clothes quickly, and they have to get it out there, and then they would see a new micro trend, and then they would get that out there quickly. And so the pieces aren't made well. They're not made to last. They're made to hit you with that, trend, and then move on to the next thing. And so I think it really just sped up this idea of like throwing things out and a linear model when it came to our fashion industry. So it's like we buy something, we wear it once, we throw it out, and then we go get the new thing, and so on and so forth. And so I think what we talk a lot about in the sustainable fashion world is like a circular um, model of buying clothes. And it's like you buy something, you wear it a whole bunch of times, and then maybe you give it to a friend and then they wear it a bunch of times, and then they give it to a friend and they wear it a bunch of times, or you rent something. And I have an event coming up, so I'm gonna rent these 6 pieces, and I'm gonna wear them, and then I'm gonna give them back to the company that I rented it from, and then someone else is gonna wear it. Or just this is made out of I bought this shirt that is made out of this great fabric that once I wear it and once I inevitably get rid of it or whatever, um, it's gonna be healthy or not, it's not gonna harm the planet. It's gonna go back
Hmm.
into the planet. Or maybe I send it to a company that can learn to break down the pieces and turn it into something new. And so yeah, I think that that's kind of what's been pushed out there as like a way to combat this like very linear model of just buying and throwing things out. But I think it's really just, yeah, this fast fashion, these ultra fast fashion companies. I mean, I know that Shein produces anywhere from like, I'm gonna mess this up too again. I think it's
That's
10 to 10,000 individual styles per day.
okay.
Um, and so like what a scale that number is.
It was kind of daunting. Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's like those are just styles. Like those are just the individual, like the white t-shirt and then the black
Hmm.
t-shirt and then the purple t-shirt. So on top of that, then it's like, okay, well, we made 20 of these white t-shirts and we made 200 of these black t-shirts and we made 3 of these pink t-shirts. So then it's like those individual clothes on top of that. So that's just like an amount that I really cannot wrap my head around. And currently we have enough clothes out there to dress the next 6 generations of people. So not even my kids, not even their kids, not even those kids' kids, like so on and so on and so on. And not only are we not stopping producing clothing, but we're still producing it at this rapid amount, at this rapid pace. And so I think it's just like really fast fashion is a huge part of the issue. And I think that one way that we can work on maybe combating that, because I do, you know, I understand wanting new clothes. I think that this is something I get asked a lot when it's like,
Hmm.
well, I want something new in my closet, or I want to be fashionable, I want to be this. It's like, well, there are still ways to, I think that like maybe a misconception about sustainability is that like you have to be, boring in order to wear the clothes. And it's like, well, first of all, sustainable fashion is such an umbrella term. There are so many ways that you can be sustainable, whether it's keeping things in your closet for literally just forever and wearing them over and over and over again, to if it's supporting a sustainable brand, to, borrowing from friends, renting, thrifting. Um, like I just did a clothing swap, swapping with friends, um, even just repairing things that you already have that you're like, ugh, like I have this white t-shirt and I did end up paying actually $80 for it because it was something I want to keep forever, but I got a
Sure.
stain in it. Like, then taking that to a dry cleaner and like really caring for the clothes that we have. I think also with the push of like fast fashion, we've really stopped caring for our clothes. So when I buy something, I always ask myself like, how many times am I going to wear this? Where am I going to wear it to? What am I going to pair it with? If I'm only going to pair it with these like one specific pair of jeans or whatever, maybe not the best to buy.
Yeah. I made one outfit and that's it.
Yeah, like, so I think it's just like, let's change our mindset a little bit. Let's think about these purchases that we're making. And if you want to implement trends, my favorite example of like the bow one is like, I saw so many sweaters being like sold that they were sweaters and then they had bows all over them. And I was like, I can literally make that. Like, why?
Hmm.
Why would I buy that?
All my 2021 bows can go right on a sweater I own. No
That
problem.
literally, it's like I have all of this random ribbon because I'm a big fan of not wasting things. So I
Sure.
literally collect everything that I've ever received ever. Anytime I get a gift, you best believe that card's being saved in a
Hmm.
box. The bag you gave it to me is going to be repurposed, and any like ribbon or tissue paper is being kept. And so I have all of this random ribbon, and I have a bunch of safety pins, and I just freaking safety pinned some ribbons onto onto a sweater. And then when the trend is over, or I didn't want to wear the piece again like that, I can just unsafety pin the ribbons, and you know go on with my regular sweater that I had originally.
Yeah.
So I think it's just how we implement trends, and making, going back to like personal style. I think that a lot of these fast fashion brands want your entire style to just be like head to toe trends. But if we find ways that are like, if you look, that's why I love thrifting. And I know it's not for everybody, but when I go to a thrift store, it's like not this like, trend geared store. It's complete chaos.
It is what you find.
So when I'm picking up pieces, it's like, oh, I'm buying this because I really like it because it's something that I am going to keep forever. Versus like I'm buying this because it's on trend and it's like
Right.
cute. So just a mindset shift, I think.
Is I mean, well, I mean, I have a bunch of questions here, but I think you answered a ton of them in that
Sorry,
little.
my
That's okay.
answers
No,
are so long.
I was like this. I was like, cool. She's working through the script. She doesn't even know she's doing it, but she is. Uh, I guess is social media the problem here? Because I mean, I'm not like a big TikTok consumer, and I mean, I have an account, and I'm definitely not an influencer by any means. But like I see like I get ads for these TikTok shops where it's like here is a crew neck that is just reprinted a different thing on it each time. It's something
Yeah,
like that. Like or people are like, I guess even when it comes to Halloween, it's different like styles, and people are like, oh, I bought this, I bought 31 costumes, here it is, and that person gets rid of 31 costumes at the end of it. Like,
yeah.
what is social media a huge issue for consumers?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say again, it's really there it's pushing those trends towards us. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like what fashion used to be a lot of is like honestly like you just get so much inspiration from seeing other people and other people what other people wear and you're like, "Oh, I like that and I want to maybe replicate that or do it in my own way or like whatever." And or we see things that are like, on fashion shows during New York
If
Fashion Week.
Kendrick if Kendrick Lamar's wears mom jeans, we
No,
all gotta go
literally,
buy mom jeans. Like,
exactly.
not that
Exactly.
I bought a
Yeah,
pair,
that's like
but
a
like,
perfect example. And it's like we're seeing people wearing these things. And so since social media, I feel like really obviously gave us like a look into everybody's life
mm-hmm.
more chronically, I think, like a lot more than we were seeing before. Um, it's definitely a pushing just like so many trends at us. And then it's always on to like the next thing. Like trends used to be, oh God, I remember. Back in the day. No, but when I like first took a fashion lesson, just about general fashion, I don't know how old I was, but I was young and I was taking like a summer camp and some fashion teacher came in and he was talking to us about trends and he was like, trends are built like 5 years in advance. Like it used to be like you would go to a fabric market in like Italy and like it would start with like, okay, there's a bunch of these colors out there at the fabric market, so a lot of designers all of a sudden are getting like kind of the same color, and then they're using that piece and they're taking it and they're working it out on their own, and then you see it on the runway and you see those like really bizarre outfits that you're like, what the heck, no one's wearing this. But okay, I'm sorry, it's literally like that classic scene in The Devil Wears Prada where
Okay, haven't seen it yet, but
no,
I will take
okay,
your word
that's what I
for
was
it.
like. I'm gonna reference it, but I don't know if you're gonna know
It's on
it.
my list. I'm doing a thing where I'm this year only. I'm watching movies I've never seen. Like I've only
Okay,
seen movies for the first time this year, so it's on my list. Maybe tonight I'll
okay.
go watch Devil
I'm
Wears
gonna
Prada.
say I think you should prioritize that one.
Okay, move it to
It
the front of
is
the line.
such a good movie, and there's this scene. It's very iconic, and they have these two belts, and the two belts are somewhat similar in color, and they're like it's Miranda Priestley who's supposed to be Anna Wintour, but it's Meryl Streep's character, and she's like, they're like, oh, the belts, they're so different. And Anne Hathaway's character like laughs a little and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm new at this. Like those belts look the exact same to me. And then Meryl Streep gives like one of the best little speeches in my opinion, movie history, where she like walks us through how we get clothes basically. And so it's like it starts on that runway and we see these pieces on these runways and I always will see like discourse where it's like, who the heck is wearing that? Like whatever. But I'm like, that's because it's runway fashion. Then people are gonna, there are also multiple like fashion shows during Fashion Week, and there's like ready to wear, and then there's like runway. So we do see those ready to wear pieces that are a little bit more like the average every single day human being is going to be wearing that versus like the crazy, insane runway pieces where there's like a whole lion's head on a dress, which
Yeah.
is an actual example. But yeah, so then it like trickles down into, and people take those and they use them as inspirations for trends. And then it trickles down. And then that's where you'll get it into like your actual, retailer. And you'll see something and it's like, well, actually, this was the reason that this color is so on trend is because in, the 1999 Schiaparelli show, like they used this color. And, it's like that example. And so trends literally used to be built out like so far in advance and we could like predict what was coming next because like we were getting these specifically from fashion shows and from our designers and from, these just like really well-known, talked about companies and brands and designers in the industry. Nowadays, I feel like we have been pushed every single fashion trend in the world in the span of like a month that I'm like, what even is happening? Like, we're wearing crazy things, which I love. I'm a big, like, advocate of like wearing, again, your personal style, what you think you look best in. But we're getting pushed just like so many things on social media that it's like, I don't even know if we can predict what's going to happen in the next 5 years because I'm scared. I'm clutching my pearls. Like, what is happening like with these trends? And so I think definitely just the way that we used to view and kind of run the fashion industry has really, really changed the more and more we use social media and push these trends. And then because of that, have so many of these ultra fast fashion companies that are then pushing trends out to us. And then, yeah, on top of that, there's things like TikTok Shop and Amazon where you're like constantly being pushed ads as well for those specific items. And like while I don't love or shop from either of them, I do think that you can find really interesting small businesses
Hmm.
on TikTok Shop, which is like maybe the like one added plus out of
Exception.
a whole lot of bad. I think my main issue with it is that like we're scrolling and we're hitting like 90 videos in like 1 minute, and then we're being pushed so many ads in those videos. And like my For You page now, I would say like majority of the videos I have on my For You page, at least like if I'm seeing 10 videos, I would say like eight of them are ads,
Yeah.
or at least have something like linked. And so I think it's just pushing that like impulse buying more and more, which I am not a fan of impulse buying. I always ask yourself those questions, guys. How many times are you going to use this? I like my dream, my goal, I guess, is to have a closet of just items that I'm literally never going to get rid of.
Hmm.
And that they're so good and amazing, whether that's, a basic white t-shirt or the craziest thing you've ever seen. But I'm never going to get rid of it, and I'm going to give it and be able to pass it down to like my kids and their kids and so on.
Right.
Um, and so,
For me, it becomes like if I'm online shopping, it's a 24-hour rule. Like, okay, put it in the
yes,
cart and just wait 24 hours. Do I still want it or can I live without this thing already?
yeah, that's such a great way of doing that when you're online shopping. I think that that's something that I will do a lot too, where because I will only shop online from like secondhand sites. So I'm
Sure.
like, if it's gone by
Good.
like in 5 days, then it wasn't fate. Like
Right.
I didn't need it that
Didn't need
bad.
it.
And if you're still thinking about it, if it's one of those things that you're like, I wish I got that, then that's something that's worth it. Like there are these boots that I bought once, and I bought them from the actual site, and they were like a more sustainable boot or whatever. I was like, you know what? I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm gonna buy it. And then the boots got lost in the mail, and I was so heartbroken. And they were sold out. So I was like, okay, great. You know what? It wasn't worth it. It wasn't fate. I wasn't supposed to have that piece.
Wasn't meant to be.
But then I was literally like, oh my God, I'm so pissed. Like I wish I had those boots. Like I really, really wanted them. Like I'm really mad. And a few months later, I saw them on Depop, and I was like, okay, this is actually what I'm going to do now that I have been thinking about these boots. I had already initially bought them, but I kind of was like, did I really need them when I initially bought them? And now that I've been thinking about them for months, I'm like, I am making this purchase. And not only are they a sustainable boot, but on top of that, I'm getting it from Depop. So it's double sustainability and it wins all around.
The universe finds a way to work out. Well, great. So Lexi, so let's do a little rapid fire as we close up here. So sustainable consumers, advice you would offer them as like, okay, you want to be a sustainable consumer. Here's where you start. Here's what you need to do. And here's what not to be afraid of.
Yes, I think do research first, get educated on the topic, look into the brands that you're shopping from, look at ways that you can be sustainable. I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there that it's like super hard to be sustainable or you have to throw everything out in your house that's not sustainable. I actually recommend completely not doing that and keeping everything for as long as humanly possible. Do your research, and then once you've done it, spread the word. Try to get friends involved, host those clothing swaps. Those are so easy, like, and fun to do. Host a beach cleanup. There are beach cleanups all around Los Angeles. I'm sure there are beach cleanups in in Maryland, go to Ocean City.
They'll probably dig up a Corbin Burns jersey from last year.
And yeah, I think just like find ways of, hosting those local fun things that people might not even realize that they're being sustainable. I suggest too to make, because again, this topic can be very daunting. Start with what you're passionate about. I was passionate about the fashion industry. I did my research on that. I switched my shopping habits. And now I feel like, I'm very I'm set. I have a good closet. I don't really buy that much anymore. If I do, it's pieces I love. And so I feel like I've kind of gotten around to feeling like, an expert on this. And so now I've moved on to, food. What food can I buy locally? How can I start composting? How can I do this and that? And so if your thing's not fashion, that's so okay, but find your area of interest and work out ways that you can be sustainable in that field.
There you go. Halloween, did you dress up?
I did. I did my 31 days series.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone wants to check that out on my Instagram, it's that you'll have inspiration for years to come.
Sure.
Um, but I went as Hamilton from the Broadway musical Hamilton.
All right, cool. Also
And
a
then
president, but
not the president,
sure, yeah. Not the president.
not he wasn't, but not the guy in history, not him. Very specifically, the Broadway musical him. And then I also went as a cheetah. Kind of boring, but I
Oh,
did my
yeah.
31 days and I was like, you know what, for actual Halloween, I'm gonna be chill.
There you go. It's funny because we did that little Q&A on the website where you said overdone costumes are like vampires and stuff, and then you went as a cheetah. So I'm gonna call you out.
And I am so here for it. Please do call me out.
How dare you? All right, Lexi, if people want to learn more about you and what you're doing and all the programs you're running, where can they find more?
Yeah, all of my socials are Lexy Silverstein. My website is Lexy Silverstein. That's Lexy, silver like the color, Stein. And then my podcast, you can download it anywhere where you listen to podcasts, and that is The Lexy Show.
Awesome. Well, those are all my questions. If you have any final thoughts, hit me with them.
I don't think. Just try to be more sustainable. And if you have any questions, always reach out to me. I'm so here to help.
Yeah, and I guess a common theme on our show is it takes all of us. These are problems across all of our lives, and we all need to be a part of it to kind of make it better. So that
Exactly.
is a show. Lexi, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so, 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 so much.
Okay, thank you again to Lexi for being here on this episode of the Waste World Podcast. A huge thank you to her for highlighting the role that the community programs and education and circular systems play in reducing textile waste. Her work you should check out. A lot of cool stuff going on there, and hopefully we see the expansion of that very soon. The clothing industry isn't going to slow down on its own. So we need people like Lexi, people who are forward thinking about what they're doing with their clothing choices, with their future clothing choices, their clothing they're getting rid of. We need people who are making small changes in behavior to build up to big changes, plus smart infrastructure and reuse options so we can shift the entire system. That is going to be paramount. If you found this episode valuable or good or fun to listen to, please follow, rate, and share it on all podcasting services. Share it with your friends. Share it with people who are interested in fashion. That I think they would find this very helpful. When it comes to sustainability, it's a good way to stand out in the fashion industry. I think. I'm not in the fashion industry, but I'm thinking that if you can find a niche as in sustainability and fashion, you'll stick out and do some cool stuff with thrifting. I don't know. I can barely dress myself, but hopefully someone out there knows what they're doing, like Lexi. The more people who understand what happens to textiles after we're done with them, the more momentum we have towards real solutions. I think that is the lesson here. So again, thank you for listening. Rate us, review us, subscribe, share us, get the word out. As always, and check out waste360.com for past episodes, other articles, and news from the waste and recycling industry. And remember, it's our world. Let's not waste it.
3, 2, 1.